never stays a day. A bad luck's always coming my way.
So it's been pretty close to a month, maybe give or take a couple days since our last Grim Life Collective video. So this is us coming back. So what have we been up to? Well, we ended up moving to Savannah. We came down here to do a live investigation and stream it out to our subscribers via Facebook, and we fell in love with Savannah. Moved here 3.5 weeks later. Now we are residents. We're living in the historic district and working in a haunted house. Not Halloween haunted house, but an actual spirit, haunted, ghosts, everything you can imagine. With that being said, I'd like to introduce you to the Sorrel Weed House, the place where Taylor and I have been working and spending a lot of our free time and a lot of ghost hunting. But in order for that to happen, just like any good story, the best place is the start is the beginning. Well, it's technically the end because we are in the graveyard. It is the Laurel Grove Cemetery here in Savannah, Georgia. And we are here at the Sorrel family plot. So this is the family crypt for the Sorrel family, sacred to the memory of our beloved parents, Francis and Matilda Sorrel. With dutiful and most grateful hearts, their surviving sons and daughters have placed this tablet in the year of our Lord, 1870. So Francis, all in all, had 11 children, 3 with his first wife and 8 with his second wife, Matilda. But out of all of his children, there's only one that became famous, so to speak, and that is this gentleman right here, General Moxley Sorrel, or Gilbert Moxley Sorrel. He was the youngest Confederate brigadier general in all of Confederate Civil War history. Civil War. The Confederate Army. That was perfect. And as we enter the Sorrel Weed House, the bells of St. John's the Baptist Cathedral are ringing. I think it's only fitting. Wait till you guys see the inside of this house. It is pretty amazing, pretty beautiful. So this is the main foyer. main staircase. Of course, everything looked a little bit different whenever Francis and Matilda and their children lived here, and then every family after that. But like I said, we're here to talk about ghosts. So we're going to head into the parlor rooms, the men's parlor and the women's parlor, and talk about some of the paranormal activity that we've been experiencing in there. So follow me. So the parlor rooms, this where I'm standing is the men's parlor, and on the opposite side is the women's parlor, but we're going to get there shortly. But in these two rooms, the Sorrels were very well known for throwing parties. In fact, they were quite memorable. There was dancing, there was laughter, there was spirits, alcohol, not ghosts just yet, but these two rooms were the happy times for the family. All that eventually changed, and now, whether we're bringing tours in here or Taylor and I are in here by ourselves, turning on lights, cleaning up a little bit, we experience all kinds of crazy things, such as shadows and what have you not. Now guests, as you can tell, there's a mirror behind me. Guests who come in here often take photos inside those mirrors. And whether it's a selfie or a group photo, sometimes people show up that aren't there, who weren't there whenever they took the photo, like a full body apparition, whether it's a man, a woman, a soldier. I myself haven't caught anything in a photograph, but I take photos every single day. Now, this is one of the hot spots for whenever we do paranormal investigations. But the experience that I had was actually here in the women's parlor. Now, I was in this room giving a tour to 30 people. It was a full group, and I was standing right here, and I was talking to them all, talking about the mirrors. We showed pictures that guests have taken on the tours, that things that they caught. When all of a sudden, behind me, while talking, I hear this. And it caught me off guard. I jumped a little bit, actually. Now, this, we also call this the drawing room. Now, I heard this chair move, and I turned around and saw it move with my own two eyes. Everybody on this side of the room saw it and heard it because it was in the direct line of sight, while everybody on the other side just heard it. I felt bad because for probably about 3 weeks before this happened on my tours, nothing happened. Nobody caught photos, haven't heard anything, and then all of a sudden, unexpectedly, this chair moves. Now, this is one of the chairs in the entire house that moves, as well as there's another one over in the dining room. Now, I'm a skeptic of sorts. I mean, I'm a believer, but I'm also a skeptic. Meaning, unless it happens to me, unless I see it with my own two eyes, or unless it touches me, I'm not gonna believe it. Seeing something like that in this house completely caught me off guard.
So one of my personal experiences here in the ladies' parlor was during actually a few sessions of paranormal investigating. See, we do paranormal investigations every weekend here at the Sorrel House, and we use lots of paranormal devices, very high-tech equipment, one of which we call a REM pod. And it's basically an EMF reader that creates a field around it, and if that field is disrupted, lights go off. So you can communicate with spirits that way. And we usually set it right here in the middle of this marble table. And on multiple occasions, I've had intelligent conversations with one in particular spirit that keeps coming back to actually communicate with me. Haven't really figured out who or if it's a man or a woman yet, but I've asked it if we've talked before, and it just keeps coming back to speak with me through this device, which is great. It's not very happy here, but it seems to at least want to talk.
Now, we just heard a sound upstairs of something moving, but we know for a fact that it wasn't a ghost because our caretaker is here, he is upstairs, and he's probably moving stuff around. But we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and set the camera up here a little bit and see if we can catch anything strange ourselves. Now, that is not a ghost right here. This is Taylor, and this is me. And this gentleman right back here, this is Moxley, the youngest Confederate brigadier general that we were talking about at the cemetery. Now, if anybody sees any apparition show up in this video, in this setting. I'm looking. Keep in mind that Taylor and I are the only two people in this room. All right, on to other things.
We don't get many paranormal experiences here in the dining room. It does have an interesting history, but for the most part, we do believe Francis Sorrel is here, and for this reason. This is the sound that tour guides and staff have heard here multiple times. This chair has been found moved or just been heard move away from the table and then slammed back into the table multiple times. On one occasion in particular, it was actually found over in this corner. But that's about it. Someone definitely likes to sit here. Standing right here on this staircase, as a matter of fact, on this step exactly, I had my first physical experience. I was escorting two guests that were late for a tour up to the library to connect with their tour, and as I was coming back down the stairs, something grabbed the back of my neck. I turned around expecting to see one of the guests, and no one was there. 10 minutes later, I felt crazy, of course, but something definitely touched me right here on the staircase.
On the second floor of the carriage house is where we are heading now. And this is a room that not many people like to go into. Now, it is here on the second floor of the carriage house where at any given time there was 13 to 30 slaves working here for the Sorrels. The entire second floor were the slave quarters. But there's one slave in particular, her name was Molly, who had special privileges. One of them being her own room. Now this was Molly's room, and today we still consider it Molly's room because it is Molly who still haunts it, as well as a few other ghosts. Now at one time during one of our investigations, I do believe we were able to make communication with 3 spirits. Now my experience with this room, however, was not inside the room. I was actually standing right here on the outside of it while some guest investigators were inside, and I felt this burning sensation on the back of my neck. Now, I didn't feel anything besides the burning. I didn't feel any, somebody hitting me, somebody scratching me, but I told one of my investigator partners about it, and they came over and looked at it with a flashlight, and they can clearly see scratch marks on the back of my neck. Molly was believed to have hung herself in this room. And there's no real way of knowing, but we think that it's over in this area because investigators have come in here and heard the sound of rope tension over here by these rafters. The time that we've been here, about a month of giving tours and doing paranormal investigations, it almost feels like we've had a lifetime of experiences, and it almost happens every single day. Finish off this video in what we call the surgery room here at the Sorrel Weed House. This is my favorite room to investigate, and I've had some of my craziest experiences in this very room. Now, why this room? Well, Francis had a son by the name of Frank, and he used this room as a trauma surgery. A lot of patients have been inside this room. A lot of blood has been spilled on these floors. Now we have so much activity in this room that we are recording it 24/7. There's 3 infrared cameras in this room alone. There's one here in the corner. There's one above the doorway, and one over in this corner, all facing towards this couch. Now, we get people from all over the country coming here to do the investigations and take the tours just so they can stand inside this room. Now, I'm feeling pretty okay in here. Maybe it's because the lights are on, not entirely sure, but usually when I come in this room, it's almost like I have a sack of bricks on my chest, almost like I'm drowning. And that is my greatest fear in life. It's probably drowning. I don't want to die that way. In this room, people have been touched, people have been had the hair played with, their clothes tugged, earrings ripped out, voices, shadows. But my creme de la creme, if you will, paranormal experience would have to be one night after doing an investigation. Everybody left, and Taylor and our lead investigator, Gordon, went outside to smoke a cigarette. I came in the house to close down, turn off the lights, turn down the monitors, and I sat in the other room. I'm going to show you the monitor room here in a second. But I sat there for a good couple minutes and I saw what appeared to be a person actually sitting right here. He got up and he walked over towards this door and then just paced back and forth. I sat there for a good couple minutes watching, and you could see the outline of somebody walking. Now, I went out to get Gordon and Taylor, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit this, but I had tears in my eyes. Not because I was scared, but I think all I could say was, you gotta see this, it's beautiful. Something along that. Brought him in here and we watched it again for a good couple minutes. Now, like a good investigator, Gordon thought that it was possibly a cobweb on one of the cameras. Actually, this camera right here up in the corner, I'm not sure if you guys can see it. But he went over, wiped it, and we went back to the monitor to watch it, and after a moment or two, it came back briefly and then it was gone. So I guess at this point, I'm going to give a shout out to Savannah paranormal investigators, because that whole thing of seeing if it was a cobweb and what we saw on the monitor that night was recorded on Gordon's cell phone and put up on his Facebook page. So you can go there and watch it. You have to scroll down a couple weeks to find it. But that was my crazy experience in this room. That and feeling like I'm drowning. Yeah, like I said, Sorrel Weed House is a crazy place. There's no gimmicks. It's not, you could look around from the video, there's no Halloween decorations or anything. It's a beautiful place, but it is extremely creepy.
So this has got to be one of the creepiest rooms in the house, to be completely honest. Most of the time it's dark. I mean, even during tours during the day, we have the lights off in here, so this is a pretty rare thing. And you know, it just being dark, that's creepy all in itself, but there's been multiple things that I've actually seen happen in here. One personal experience, I guess, me, our lead investigator, Gordon, and Michael, we're all down here standing around this table, which was about in the same place, standing shoulder to shoulder, honestly, right here, trying to communicate with something intelligently that was coming through on some of the devices. And we're standing here with all the doors closed, pitch black room, like I said, shoulder to shoulder, so I knew exactly where the other two people were, and we all three heard someone move over in this corner, and it was just scraping against the brick almost, just shuffling. But it was clear as day, and I just remember all three of us backing up away from the table and going, whoa, you know, don't come close to us. But it was dark, there was no one else in the room, and I knew exactly where everyone was, and it was amazing. Well, that's not the only experience. I had talked about the REM pods earlier in the video, and like I said, basically it's just a way for entities to communicate with us via flashing lights. And it goes up in a color pattern all the way to red based on strength. And we actually got something to communicate going all the way up to red one time right here in this room. And that entity has to be extremely strong to do that. So that's pretty spooky. Well, a lot of things happen in this corner other than shuffling and whatnot. We actually had a guest on our last paranormal investigation here on Sunday that was standing here during the debriefing, and he got touched, like someone just put their arm around him. And at first he thought it was his girlfriend, and you could see, like I was watching, you could see the look on his face. He turned over and looked over his shoulder, expected to see his girlfriend, and he actually turned back, started paying attention to the debriefing again, and then turned around and freaked out because he realized no one was there. And he was skittish for the rest of the night.
And in fact, that gentleman who was here for that investigation, it took a lot to get him to come back into the house. And that was kind of strange to deal with. I mean, he was a military. We couldn't find out if he was an Army or if he was a Marine. But he, and I quote him saying this, he said that it was worse than combat. Because while in combat, you could see what he was fighting. Here, it seemed like it was coming from all over the place. So it was very interesting to see that transpire for the 2 hours that they were here, all the time that he was in the house. Now, if you're watching this, I'm not going to say your name or anything, but if you do watch this, you know we were talking about you. Now, when Taylor was talking, I'm sure everybody saw in the background, there was a monitor, and I'm going to point that out. Now the lights are on. Usually when the lights are off, it is an infrared. Everything that you see on the screen is black and gray. But this is what we show our guests whenever we bring them in to take our tours. These two rooms right here, or these two cameras, are the surgery room, which we just came from, we were talking about. This is another room on the other side of those doors. And this room here is a staircase that goes up to the first floor of the mansion. With that, that concludes the latest Grim Life Collective video. Like I said earlier, we've been absent for a month because of the move here. This is where we've been working, where we've been spending a lot of our free time. And if you'd like to come visit us or take a tour, come to Savannah, Georgia, visit the Sorrel Weed House. Hopefully you'll have an experience too. In the meantime, we're going to have to close down the house and get out of here. It is after midnight, and hopefully in doing so, we're not going to see anything. Maybe it is a good thing.